Bitcoin is right now indubitably retesting previous resistance, turning it into support. And let's just say the bounce is coming hard, strong, big, and dare I say even extra big. And many of you are even more interested in what is happening with altcoins, which we've just gotten further confirmation that we're about to be absolutely entering liftoff. And in the last 24 hours, I've actually opened up some trades. However, I'm very aware that we could actually see Bitcoin and the broader crypto markets actually continue to go down a little bit, at which point I'm actually going to be opening bigger and bigger trades, or at least adding to those trades, because I'm very confident that this setup that we're seeing right here, let me just draw a little, or put a little line, a very simple resistance to support flip, this being the resistance, now being flipped into support, will initiate a move so big that you're going to have to stock up on wet naps and wet wipes, because it's going to be messy and it's going to be big. So I actually want to highlight a lot of things in regards to Bitcoin, but also Ethereum, and then kind of dump into the charts a little bit. But if history is any indication, Bitcoin has about 2 months left in this bull market. What Gel on X says here is it lines up well with Solana and ETH that are both getting ready for price discovery, and altcoins tend to top about a month after Bitcoin does. So what his thesis is here is that basically what this person is saying, and I'll share my opinion on this later in the video, but what he's saying is that this bull market is in its final 2 months. So just take a step back and soak it all in, slurp it all in, even if you're feeling a little crazy. But what he says here, the cycle will be over within about 100 days if this pattern of about 1,064 days, day-long cycles repeats. What do you think? Do you think that truly we are in the very, very final innings of this bull market, and we are about to get alt season, but the window is basically almost closed? Meaning what he's saying here, and again, I'm going to share my opinion on this, but what he's saying is that basically this is it. The juice is about to be let loose, and then we're done. And it's going to be a lot harder to make money in crypto for the next few years. Curious what your opinion on this is. Now this, I completely will share my opinion on right now. I completely agree with it. 95% of the time in crypto, alts actually do horribly, and Bitcoin beats them. But there is a very tiny window where alts outperform Bitcoin. But the insane part about that is in that very tiny window of time, the gains that altcoins get, simply because basically they're a much smaller market cap and it takes less money to move them, the gains that rotate from Bitcoin into altcoins push those altcoins temporarily so high that getting a 20, 30, 40, 50x happens. It's realistic. It is a very likely, and in the past, basically guaranteed way of making money. Now, what's not guaranteed is actually making money from it, because one, you have to time it correctly. You have to be in alts at the right times. You have to manage your emotions. You can't see one altcoin go up 30x and your altcoin's only up like 2x, and you're like, okay, I'm going to move it all into that altcoin. Usually what happens then is that altcoin that you move it into stops going up, and the one you just traded out of then hits a 20x, and you're just constantly chasing gains, and you end up somehow losing money, right? When it should be an easy W. But that's basically where we're at, is that it's a very, very, very lucrative, easy time to make money, but it is such a small window. And if you are not there for that tiny window, there's a high chance you miss out, which is why you want to have positions now, which is why you want to have your allocations and your crypto and everything, all your bags packed now, because when it gets nutty, it gets nutty, okay? What he's saying is this 5% is going to happen very soon, and actually there's a lot of evidence to support that as well. Now, this is something interesting. President Trump's Ethereum exposure is insanely high. It's growing as well. What does this mean, right? 97% of his portfolio is now parked in Ethereum. Okay, interesting. BlackRock as well just bought over $30 million worth of ETH. Okay. Follow the money, I guess, is the easiest sentiment or statement to make regarding this. What's going on? These are people that, well, BlackRock and President Trump if anyone has knowledge of what's happening or what's going to happen in terms of regulation or something pumping, it's probably them, right? The president of the US, BlackRock, the largest institutional asset manager on planet Girth itself. Interesting. Is ETH about to pump big time, ushering in the beginning of Giga Alt season? Maybe. ETH about to go parabolic, according to Mr. Crypto on X. We have the accumulation phase, the reaccumulation phase, and then the parabolic phase. And keep in mind, that parabolic phase window is very, very tiny. Some would even say very tiny. It is. And let's say that we have this massive pump and you're up here. This is not when you want to be buying, because is it likely to just keep going up? No, it's likely actually a correction comes after that parabolic phase. In fact, that's how you define that, I guess. Altcoin cup and handle as well is currently being formed. We've been watching the entire altcoin chart for so long now. You can see if we zoom out right here, we're right on the verge of breaking out. It's gigantic. And when it happens, you're going to be looking back thinking, wow, it was so easy, I should have been positioned. Be positioned now. Be ready now. Have your positions now. If you want to buy altcoins, you can sign up with any of the links in the description. Lots of alts. Actually, with the links in the description, you can basically get any of the top alts you would want. They're all listed on these exchanges. And my bags are packed. I'm ready. I'm very exposed to the altcoin market. So if we get a pump, when we get this pump, let's just say I'm ready for it. I'm ready to get pumped on. And, we're at the very end of August right now as I'm making this. Let's say by Santa Claus time, around December, Santa Claus time, maybe this entire thing is already over and we pumped, we already had the alt season. Maybe it's true that the alt season and the entire crypto cycle comes to an end in about a couple of months. Let's say maybe 2 months, maybe 3. Are you positioned for that? And also, wow, that actually is kind of crazy because, if it is a 2 or 3 month window left and that's it, and then it's a couple of years of sideways and whatever. One, I think that, just like this bull market has been very different and not as good as previous bull markets in terms of like excitement, especially with alts, and gains, especially with alts, maybe the bear market won't be as good either, or not as dumpy either. The bull market does not seem as pumpy. Maybe the bear market won't be as dumpy. Maybe we're truly shifting into a less extreme crypto market, less explosions to the upside, but maybe also less dumpies to the downside. A more stable crypto market. That's, if you really think about it, that's exactly what's going to happen eventually, because there's, the more people that are speculating, the more stable eventually it becomes, because you can only have, there's a limited amount of people on Earth that are buying assets. And let's say we get to a point where most people have these assets, there's not a lot of more room for crazy growth, but also that means there's probably not as much room for crazy dumps either. It's becoming more stable. So there's good and bad to it. Nothing's ever just purely bad for the most part. We do see as well that Bitcoin, as I just mentioned, has successfully retested the previous range highs. Are we about to? I think the next major move is going to be upside. I don't necessarily think that we're done dumping necessarily yet, but it's possible that $110,000 per Bitcoin is actually kind of that low, and we're not going to go much lower than that. That's very realistic. A few things before we jump into the charts more. Bitcoin has grown from about 0.04% to about 0.6% of global real estate value since 2019. In the past 6 years, it's had a 14x increase relative to the world's largest asset market in 6 years. That's crazy. Digital property is eating physical property faster than you think. And this is another thing in regards to real estate. Real estate seems to be getting a lot more expensive, right? Houses now cost way more USD or whatever your local fiat currency is than it did a couple of years ago. So it's one, housing prices are increasing, but what is the real reason that we're increasing so fast? It's basically because the US dollar and the yen and the euro and the British pound, all of these things are just losing value because of inflation. They're less and less reliable. They're less and less worth anything. They're becoming more and more worthless. I talked about this in like a couple of videos ago, but I was talking to somebody who didn't understand crypto or finance at all. And one of the things they told me is, with a straight face, they told me that inflation is actually good. I'm sorry. I don't know why I do this to myself. I don't even know why I bring up the topic, because honestly, it just makes me sad when I talk to people who don't know something, they don't know anything about something, but they act as if they know. It's always the same with people, right? Let me do like a 20-second rant. People, if you ever meet somebody that thinks they know everything about everything, it's very likely that it's the opposite. They know nothing about basically anything. They know nothing. I'm very aware that there's so many things that I don't know about. And if somebody asks me questions about them, I simply say, I don't know. You know, if I don't know something, I won't pretend to know it, or I won't make something up. When you're talking to somebody who somehow knows everything about everything, there's a high chance that they're either like a pathological liar, they're delusional, or most likely these are not people that are serious people. These are people that they either have like an ego problem, or I don't know, they have some kind of like weird issue with themselves where they can't just, their ego won't let them say that they don't know something. And so they just, basically the more you talk to them, the more you realize how foolish they sound. So when I heard this guy tell me that inflation is good, and I said, well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean inflation is good? What do you mean that, for example, our purchasing power is going away? It's being eroded. How is that good? And I think he told me, I think his answer was something along the lines of like, it signals that an economy is growing. I mean, tell me you don't know anything about an economy or economics or finance in general without telling me. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Anyway, I just could not with this guy, bro. Oh my God. Anyway, I gotta get off this topic. Also, Tether is launching USDT on Bitcoin. This is big. US publishes GDP data on the Bitcoin blockchain. This is big as well. Blockchain actually being used. And we're going to see more and more of this. Hopefully, maybe presidential elections will be held on the blockchain, so they can all be verified. You know, the most instead of having to trust that elections are free and fair, we can actually just verify that they're free and fair. We can make sure that they are, and everybody can verify it. Wouldn't that be the dream? And the CFTC is going to create a pathway for US citizens to trade offshore Bitcoin and crypto exchanges. This is quite large. So looking at the entire altcoin market, again, there's going to be a time in the very, very short future, very, very near future, where this thing just starts going up and you are going to be begging to go back in time to right now, right? What is your favorite altcoin, right? Let's take a look down the list real quick. Do you like Ethereum? Right now it's about $4,500. When it's 7,000, you're going to be begging to buy what the price is now. Cardano is 85 cents. Let's say it's $3, $4. You're going to be wishing you had bought it 85 cents. Solana is $210. Let's say it's $600. You're going to be wishing, right? All of these things. And who knows what they're going to go down to when it crashes, right? But I'm talking about at the point where they explode and they're very high valuations, and you can rotate in profit to either USDT or Bitcoin, you're going to want to be doing that, right? You're going to want to be making money. Bitcoin dominance still looks like it is in the verge of the actual first collapse since back in 2021 during the last real alt season. Very promising. Ethereum basically looks identical to the entire altcoin market chart in terms of it just did actually break all-time highs, but it's right below them right now. And Bitcoin specifically I want to talk about for a little bit because we have a very clear potential resistance to support flip happening right now. And yes, we could actually go down a little lower, maybe even make it look like this is actually invalidated. But in time, a lot of times when that happens, it ends up holding here, even if we drop below it for a couple hours or a couple days or maybe even a week or two, and then ultimately bounces up. So I think this is a very good entry that I'm looking at massively for Bitcoin and altcoins. Specifically, look at this. This is a I think, very good level to be looking at either entering trades or just buying. And if we look on a weekly, we're validated with this as well, right on the 21 week. Maybe we get a crazy doomsday crash down to 95,000 and then it bounces up a week later and then, it's off to the moon after that. That's also realistic. But if that happened, do you think people would be looking at this as an opportunity to buy? Yeah, some people with experience, but a lot of people would be thinking, oh no, it's all over. We're actually going straight down. And that's what we call a fake out. Like say something like this and then bounce. A lot of people when we're here are not going to think this is what's going to happen. They're going to think what's going to happen is this. We're just going down and down and down. So be very aware of that. The M2 is still going up. That's been a pretty reliable, for the most part, indicator for crypto. The stock market is up today. SPX, NASDAQ, Dow Jones, all green right now. And global liquidity is continuing to rise. The US dollar is continuing to fall, things look very bullish. And if I really just, spend a little more time on this weekly chart for Bitcoin, anything, as I've said before, anything above $75,000 per Bitcoin, above this previous low, which was a higher low, keep in mind, this was the low, this was the low, this was the higher low, and then there was obviously a higher low, this was a higher low to this was a higher low to this was a higher low to these, right? The structure, actually, really, one thing I want to point out too on the weekly, the structure is like so consistent. It has been the most consistent I've ever seen in a bull market. And that's good and bad. It's good in the sense that this seems to be very structural and easy to predict, but bad in the sense that, if you really want explosive upside moves that you really can take advantage of, we're not getting them as much. It's more consistent and less exciting, right? So it's behaving a little more like traditional finance, a little bit more, not quite like, but it's becoming closer and closer, it seems like, right? Upside move, dump, upside move, dump, upside move, dump, upside. But each dump is a lot higher than the previous dump. So it's very constructive. It's good. But yeah, it is a little less exciting. But the reason I think people should be excited right now is because we're seeing Bitcoin dominance finally signal that, hey, and Ethereum specifically also finally signal, and the altcoin market finally signal, okay, we're about to break out. And this is really what we've been waiting for. Once these valuations really start popping off, this thing can run away a little bit. And it can be hard to catch, and you're going to want to FOMO in. And my advice to you is to be positioned now so that you do not feel the FOMO, right? Because believe it or not, I think a lot of people are having a hard time accepting and believing in this. When the pump actually comes, a lot of people are going to be thinking to themselves, wow, I didn't think the pump would ever come. And believe it or not, that's usually how it always happens. There are people like me and you probably watching that are thinking, yes, this is taking a while, but it's going to come eventually. But there are a lot of people watching right now and just in general that are thinking, no way, it's never going to come. There's not going to be a pump. A lot of people truly believe that. And you need that for it to actually pump. You need most people to think, okay, it's never going to pump. And how do we get that result of nobody or most people not believing it's ever going to come? Kind of what we're seeing now, where it's just draining your patience. It's making you believe that it can't go up, making you this market just behaving a little more boring than usual and not as pumpy for altcoins as usual. That's really the recipe you need to have this market fundamentally shift into a sentimental but also then fundamental position where we do pump. So we as much as it sucks, kind of, like, I don't like waiting around and having the prices suppressed and boring and obviously manipulated, like every market is manipulated. But really, this is not much different in terms of the sentiment than before. I think if anything now, the bigger difference is that there are so many people that believe in Bitcoin and they think that crypto is going to be the future now. I think more than ever, more people believe that, simply percentage-wise, than ever before. That maybe that's one of the biggest reasons why we're not as explosive. Because in the past, if you thought crypto was going to go up, let's say in 2017, 99% of the world would have said, well, one, what's crypto? And two, no, it's just a scam. It's a pump dump scheme. 2021 as well, although more people believed in it. But now I think, it's not even an opinion. Objectively, there are more participants in the crypto space now than there's ever been. BlackRock and the president is buying crypto, right, with his ETH fund and stuff. Personally, I think that, that's one of the reasons. I just think that now it's becoming kind of popular. Not nearly as big as it can be, but it's becoming more and more popular, and maybe that's going to also negate some of the gains. The gains simply might not be as high. But I specifically do think for some of these coins, Bitcoin and Ethereum, we're still going to get crazy returns. And also some of the top 10, 20, 30 coins as well. But there's more crypto coins now than ever. There's tens of thousands of coins. They're not all going to pump, and they shouldn't all pump. 99% of crypto are scams, which is unfortunate. But eventually people will, in my opinion, all of the money will flow into the things that actually are legitimate, like Bitcoin. And actually, one thing I said earlier in the video that I wanted to share my opinion on, do I think that this bull market is going to end in 2 to 3 months? My honest opinion, I'm very mixed on this, because my honest opinion is my initial answer would be yes, I do think that. But on the other hand, I just think that this market has been so drastically different than any other bull market, both fundamentally and technically. And again, it began about 2 years ago when Bitcoin broke all-time highs before the halving. That's never happened before. And there's just been so many technical, but also very big fundamental differences. Like, for example, the US is actively trying to get good regulation for crypto instead of trying to ban it and instead of trying to outlaw it. That's a fundamental difference now for the space. I don't truly know. Do I think that we're going to have bear markets where Bitcoin drops 50, 60, 70%? My initial answer would be yeah, probably. But then on the other hand, like, I don't know. I really don't know. It's always the same until it's not. Meaning, like, this time is not different until it is. It's you know, there's quite literally billions of dollars, people with billions of dollars trying to figure out this answer, trying to guess this answer. Nobody knows. It's a hard question. It's a very tough question. But I do believe that, you know, I don't think there's a better place to have capital than Bitcoin. And that's why I'm basically, you know, completely invested in Bitcoin and some small alts as well that I hope to be able to make more Bitcoin by trading. And without any further ado, get signed up with any of the links below if you want to buy altcoins or trade. Without further ado,